Welcome to the Singing Stone studio. I built the studio back in 1983. So this is where I do a lot of my rough cutting. The marble comes from all over the world.
Cliff Frawa is an artist from the Pueblo of Jemez. In 1999, the state of New Mexico commissioned him to create a sculpture of Popeye, the leader of the Pueblo Revolt. As Cliff worked on the sculpture, the weather turned fierce, raining and snowing, with the wind whipping around him.
I just thought that it was probably, the spirit of Popeye behind it, because it was. This has been quiet for so long, but because the Pueblo people wanted to educate the public about what really happened in the past, that it sort of woke up this spirit.
In 1680, the Spaniards were badly mistreating Pueblo people, even hanging some traditional medicine men accused of witchcraft. Popeye was imprisoned and whipped, and this motivated him to organize the Pueblo Revolt, a regional rebellion which successfully drove the Spaniards out of the territory and allowed the Pueblo culture to survive. Cliff's sculpture of Popeye now stands in Statuary Hall in Washington, D.C., where it educates visitors about this part of American history that is not taught in schools.
Well, it's foolish for anyone to think that nothing bad ever happened to Native people and that we just ought to get past it or get over it. I don't have that right to get past or get over what happened to my ancestors through massacres at Sand Creek and at the Washita. I don't have that right.
The history of Native peoples in our country is filled with such massacres. Today, many modern American Indian leaders continue to fight to be indigenous. Suzanne Harjo, who is Cheyenne Muskogee, is executive director of the Morning Star Institute in Washington, D.C. It's devoted to protecting Native people's rights and provides them with strategic advice and assistance that supports legislation.
We have the highest rate of teenage suicide of any population in the country, and we think that the bombardment of negative imaging through these stereotypes in sports and other aspects of popular culture contribute to that low self-esteem and contribute to that high suicide rate. So it's something that, while people mock it or think it should be a funny subject, is deadly serious to us.
Harjo led the lawsuit against the NFL to stop the use of an Indian mascot by the Washington team. Harjo has worked for decades on American Indian issues. Early on, she joined forces with John Echo Hawk, another modern-day Indian warrior. In the 1960s, when the federal government declared war on poverty, he earned a federal scholarship to go to law school, and after graduation, helped found the Native American Rights Fund.
I graduated in 1970. We started the Native American Rights Fund. It's a nonprofit organization. We went out and raised money. With that money, we hired lawyers and made them available to our tribes across the country in the most important cases. And we started winning, taking our treaties, our cases to the courts, showing them to the judges, and started to get our rights. And it changed everything. Well, the American system of government, the United States Constitution, recognizes Indian tribes and recognizes tribal sovereignty. That is, the status of tribes as nations, as governments. The first contact between Native peoples and the European powers oftentimes resulted in misunderstandings and conflicts, and the way that those were resolved more often than not was through treaties.
NARF ensured the treaties were understood and followed. In 1988, Echo Hawk, who is Pawnee, helped his tribe successfully argue for the return of ancestral remains from museums in Nebraska. Other tribes soon followed suit, and in 1990, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act was passed by Congress.
Repatriation, very simply, is a process for the recovery of our dead relatives, for our living beings, our sacred objects, and all of our cultural property that belongs to us as groups of people, not just as individuals. So it's landmark legislation that created this particular museum and the policy that has begun to bring a great healing in Indian country between Native peoples and the rest of the country.
So I've had the distinct pleasure to work on NAGPRA, and it's exciting because it's a very current issue, and it's very important to Native people and to museums as well. And I think that has been something that has really pushed forward the conversations and collaborations in museums with Native people today.
Another victory for NARF is the Indian Trust case. Long ago, the federal government took on the role of trustee and promised to maintain leases for land, minerals, and timber owned by individual Indian peoples. But they did not keep adequate records, and worse, they never paid the people the honest value for their holdings. Echohawk and NARF took on the case, launching the largest class action lawsuit against the federal government. They won in 2010.
It was kind of crazy of us to start, taking on the federal government over these billions of dollars that basically had been mismanaged. We needed to get that accounting from the federal government that's required by law. And so we rolled up our sleeves and started when Eloise Cobell asked us to come in and work with private co-counsel to file that litigation and to start on it. We were ready. We knew what the issue was. We knew it had to be done, and we knew it was almost a mission impossible, but somebody had to do it, so we started. And 15 years later, we're in the final stages of a settlement, $3.4 billion.
I'm so hopeful about the young people. And one of the reasons that I value this museum and I value the University of Pennsylvania Museum and others is that people are really trying to reach young people and to educate young people so that they won't repeat some of the terrible things that their elders have done.
We have the opportunity to tell our side of the story and why this occurred, and so that others may learn, and so that this does not happen again.